Okay, Curveball. I'm interjecting this part primarily because a friend, curveballer of mine, Globe lives up here near this lake area and can observe this, but would never watch this video because of this flat earth in the title. Not going to watch that. So I got to include this. But what I really want to talk about while I pause it, and we'll include this video, is the 6-axis accelerometer gyroscope that he talks about, which he's purchased and put together in his video. And not to spoil the whole thing, it's kind of, bland, but 213 miles he traveled along Lake Erie, and he uses the curvature of the Earth math to show you that there should be a 3-degree movement of curve over the axis that he's driving because of the curve of the Earth, which is not represented. He tracks it the entire time, unless you think he's a fraud. And that's what it comes down to. You either believe people that are actually doing stuff, or you want to live in the world of Einstein, where he says, imagine when you're driving your car that the car's not moving, it's the earth that moves under the car. And that's the kind of shit you got to believe if you want to believe science is reality and scientism. Because light bends, and the whole reason they have to say light bends, you've seen all those stars through the crescent moon on all these different flags of all these different nations and stuff. That's because you can see stars through the dark part of the moon. People have witnessed it, so they have to have clever mathematics, which says light bends. And then they observed it apparently in 1920, and it bent exactly like Einstein predicted in 1905, theory of relativity. But if you go back through the history again and look at why relativity came out, it was after Michelson and Morley with their rotating light proving there was an ether, proving the earth did not move. And then Einstein said, relativity. It's not you that's moving. Imagine it's the earth that's moving. It's all relative. And he's the one that said you could never devise an experiment to prove that the earth moved or did not move. They can use math that'll work in both ways, either the earth's flat or the earth's round, with their math. But I'm telling you, I've used their math in computer software. I don't have to be a mathematician to tell you it does not work. Just like I said, if the 82 AutoCAD drawing that they touted of the solar system they had was so great for the solar system, they would release it. It'd be online. Everybody could download the DXF. I looked everywhere. I couldn't do it. I had to waste, 10, 12, 20 hours drawing the fucking shit to find out, hey, they lied. We can't have a solar lunar alignment which produce a solar eclipse by the moon. Total can't happen, because it's not far enough away. The sun is too big. Their math was wrong. That's why they've kept moving it out throughout history. That's why they didn't include Captain Cook's figures, which I think I showed you. That part didn't get banned. His figures from Tahiti experiment. They went with the math that they already had prepared for the ball Earth. But if you question it, it does not compute. This guy questioned it. There is in this gyroscope no Coriolis effect. There's no mechanical drag, like they try to give you a Foucault pendulum excuse for the rotation of the Earth. It's proof. And he also did it with gyroscopes. Well, he did it with 1,800 gyroscopes with friction in the ball bearings, and it drifted. We've seen YouTubers with high precision ball bearings made nowadays, no movement. We've seen that normal gyroscopes, at least the directional gyroscope attitude indicator, is driven by air, so there's no friction there and there's no mechanical adjustments. I've made another video that I'll include that'll talk more on different things with the astrolabe. But what I want to go to now would be to explain that you'll look at the right here. There's a fellow that made this guy's downloaded this app that any Android smartphone can get. It's a little level app. And right here, perfect experiment a guy did called Paul on the Plane. He and his family live, I believe, in Seattle, and they were going to the UK on vacation. So he took a globe and put this thing on his globe where he lives in Seattle and zeroed it and put this bubble right on zero, showing that's level. Went around to the UK and put it on there, and it, you know, the bubble drifts up here somewhere. So proving, you know, that it would move. So he takes his phone on vacation with him. He shows a video of him before he leaves the airport. Again, you know, you could say it's all fake. But going to Seattle airport, and he zeroes it right like this. He gets off over there in England, in the UK, and it's in the same spot. Impossible on a ball. And this, you know, is another way of determining that, because most curveballers, globetrotters, say, oh, only 200 miles, you can't tell the curve from that distance, and you wouldn't see no movement. And I saw it jump a couple times on the digits there. Yes, but look at half the earth. The guy went from Seattle to England. Do it yourself. Check it. But you probably won't. Take pleasure in the lie.
This experiment tests for the expected globe-Earth curvature over 213.47 miles of Lake Erie. The start point is Nickel Beach in Huron, Ohio, and the end point is near LaSalle Park in Buffalo, New York. We will not be using the Nikon P900 or other optics, and so will not be dealing with the obvious resulting distortion due to refraction over water, such as here and here. For this experiment, we will be using the InvenSense MPU 6050 inertial measurement unit. Part number is BJY-61. Software is Mini IMU. The unit can operate through the TTL to USB converter, but we will use the provided Bluetooth connection to the PC. Unit will be powered through the USB port. BJY-61 module main feature: acceleration 3-axis, angular velocity 3-axis, angle 3-axis calculated with embedded Kalman filter. Product code at Amazon is BWT61 Bluetooth MPU 6050 module angle output 6-axis accelerometer gyroscope. Their price is $15.90.
We will start with the accelerometer. It measures acceleration by measuring change in capacitance. Its microstructure looks something like this. It has a mass attached to a spring, which is confined to move along one direction and fixed outer plates. So when an acceleration in the particular direction will be applied, the mass will move and the capacitance between the plates and the mass will change. This change in capacitance will be measured, processed, and it will correspond to a particular acceleration value. Next is the gyroscope, which measures angular rate using the Coriolis effect. when a mass is moving in a particular direction with a particular velocity, and when an external angular rate will be applied, as shown with the green arrow, a force will occur, as shown with the blue arrow, which will cause perpendicular displacement of the mass. So, similar to the accelerometer, this displacement will cause change in capacitance, which will be measured, processed, and it will correspond to a particular angular rate. The microstructure of the gyroscope looks something like this: a mass that is constantly moving or oscillating, and when an external angular rate will be applied, a flexible part of the mass would move and make the perpendicular displacement.
High precision pitch, roll, yaw, angle output. Embedded Kalman filter for high precision angle output. 3-axis accelerometer, 3-axis angular velocity, 3-axis angle measurement. Bluetooth serial port wireless communication can also connect with cable, providing PC software, app, and 51 STM32 Arduino sample code. BJY61 gyroscope is a good solution for angle measuring, acceleration measurement, and angular velocity measurement. It packs a 3-axis gyro and a 3-axis accelerometer.
He was working with the Spheres team yesterday on that. Here's a quick look at what those Spheres satellites looked like. This was the Spheres Vertigo test. It was a collaboration between the team out at MIT and NASA, and also DARPA. They were testing out a number of formation flying techniques, also for cluster navigation of a number of small potential objects in the microgravity environment. Again, you can see the satellite starting to fly now. These are totally self-contained satellites. They have their own minor propulsion systems contained within. They're controlled by algorithms and computer programs written by teams on the ground. Earlier incarnations of the Spheres program had these algorithms being written by high school and middle school students in competitions across the country. This, however, a more complex look at cluster flying, so you can see them slowly moving throughout the cabin. They run through a number of various tests to test out these algorithms and use the spheres inside of that station environment in order to prove all of their processes.
This experiment is called Spheres, Synchronized Position Hold. Let's see if I can get the rest of the acronym.
Spheres is a project that we sent to the space station so that we can test how to control multiple satellites.
Taking advanced ideas about formation flight and docking and applying them in a real environment on the space station. We've done tests where a satellite attempts to dock to a tumbling target that's rotating around as if it was out of fuel. And we've done tests of formation flight where satellites are rotating in a formation and a third satellite comes in and joins it.
Zero Robotics actually originated with astronaut Greg Chamitoff, who is an MIT alum and did a lot of work with us on Spheres. Zero Robotics is a new project by which we want to get high school students involved in Spheres. And it's basically a competition.
The kinds of research that we do as graduate students on the space station, and we'd like to extend that experience to younger people throughout the country.
To be able to send something I've programmed, or me and our team, up into space is pretty incredible, especially considering we're only in high school.
And to let them see that all the things that we're doing in class can be used to solve problems, and that having that mathematical background and problem-solving background, gives you a very distinct advantage.
The 2009 game modeled the idea of a personal satellite assistant that might go and pick up a tool and bring it over to the crew that's performing a spacewalk. There was a helper satellite and a blocker satellite. The helper satellite was the one retrieving the tool.
The blocker satellite represents a satellite that would be out of control in space. And therefore the helper has to move around the blocker.
And both roles were programmed by the students during the competition.
Getting to help with research that MIT and NASA are doing, and it was also really fun.
The simulation lets the students at their own computers, wherever they are in the country, program what would be the same thing that they run in Spheres and see how they think it would behave. They sent us their code, and we had a live webcast with them watching while we tested their software on the hardware that we have at MIT.
They're able to take a pretty complicated design problem and turn it into a set of code that could run successfully on the satellites in orbit.
And test 2 is running, Team 1 against MIT.
Coming to MIT, doing the test session with the ISS, uploading it. It was a really fun experience to look and see our code in action.
These kids are going to be moving on to college, and they're going to be looking at the possibility that they can design something that can go into space.
Hopefully participating in this program gives them an insight into what it takes to do that.
Okay, well, I think you would agree with me that today was a very good day, and congratulations to the students that participated in this. It's a great achievement to have the opportunity to do this, and I really appreciate and thank you for your interest in engineering, and I wish you the best in your futures.
I know you've been busy, Curveball, so you're not in the know with all of this stuff, so I'd like to enlighten you now that you've seen these videos here. I want you to remember, we go back to the part where the guy was explaining. He's got that little accelerometer that he got off of Amazon for 16 bucks. He's driving up and down the coast of Lake Erie there, looking for the curve, not documenting it at all. This is the most accurate gyroscope you could get. Now, you've heard the propaganda laid out about these spheres coming from DARPA and MIT. And you've seen how they're using these kids. It's all propaganda. This guy's on wires back here. He's not floating. These things are floating. The rest of this stuff is CGI, fake. These are real. They really work. They'll float in the air here on the ground, just like they're doing right there in the land of Nod. Somebody else went to the land of Nod. Was that Cain? Did he find woman? I don't know. Someone went to the land of Nod. Maybe it was Nimrod. Anyhow, back to the spheres. If you'll research it instead of just going with what we've shown you here, armchair, couch potato in it, just saying, yeah, they're telling me the truth. They developed it. Actually, a professor at MIT with graduate students, after seeing the 1977 Star Wars film where Luke was using his lightsabers to hit something similar to a sphere that was flying around shooting little lasers at him. He always wanted one. Well, prior to 2004, whenever the first iPhone came out, the breakthrough in the technology that allows all smartphones to rotate the screen, depending on how you twist the phone, has this accelerometer / gyroscope in it, so it knows the attitude of the phone and can do these things like the little phone app that Paul on the plane used. Well, this guy, prior to the development of this module that iPhone came up with from my research, this MIT professor had his graduate students making these spheres using the smartphone, because now he had a lightweight gyroscope that he could use via the internet to fly his robot. Think of all these, you can go to Best Buy and buy these drones. Well, he's got little jets inside here that are flying around more or less like that with a cell phone, so he knows where he's at. He's got the camera on it. So don't be fooled by the bullshit these clowns give you like it's out in outer space. And you know the reason that it's all being done is to get the people that they really are after. And that's these children that want to tell you that you heard in this video say, it's just great that it's hard to believe, I'm participating in stuff that they're doing up on the ISS and space. It's all about making space a reality. That's what they want to do. Make it seem real. This kid, Project Delta, with his little pyramid, he's participated. He thinks he's done something with algorithms in space. It's all just been uploaded, and they picked him out, and they ran a video with his program on that sphere here on Earth. Not in 0G. It's all bullshit. DARPA had nothing to do with it. Now I give you the skinny. You decide what you're going to believe this day, the truth or the propaganda.
Kalman fusion filter combines the gyro and accelerometer to get high precision angle measurement. It can be used for 4-axis flight control, self-balancing robot, angle measurement, and depth measurement, and so on. The module can get accurate attitude in a dynamic environment. Attitude measurement precision is 0.05 degrees, high stability. With advanced digital filtering technology to reduce the measurement noise and improve measurement accuracy. Bluetooth wireless serial port communication, and also can connect to other equipment with line. Note, angle of z-axis will have accumulated error because there is no magnetic field correction. This unit does not have a magnetometer and is not influenced by the Earth's magnetic field. Here is the setup from the car's 12-volt output to a sine wave power supply. Here's the laptop with the app loaded, and here's the MPU 6050 module mounted on a board which allows for leveling. And this is the TTL to USB converter. As stated, we will be using the Bluetooth to communicate with the PC. The USB connector is to power the unit. And this shows the unit responding to the motion of the board that it is mounted to. The formula for ball earth drop is miles squared times 8 inches. 213.47 miles squared times 8 inches equals 5.77 miles expected ball earth drop. What follows is a portion of a prior video which talks about how to calculate the expected pitch change when flying over the ball earth. The same formula works whether you are traveling by air or by land. Gyroscopes maintain rigidity in space. That is how they provide a service to air flight. They inform the pilot what is level flight and inform when the plane has changed pitch. If a flight path is over a curved earth, the gyroscope, while maintaining its rigidity in space, will inform the pilot that the plane has changed pitch. We are told the circumference of the alleged globe is 24,901 miles. The formula for the cumulative change in pitch of an aircraft flying over a globe Earth is miles times 360 divided by 24,901, which equals the pitch, which equals the total angle change. Miles times 0.014457251 equals pitch equals total angle change. The product of 213.47 miles times 360 degrees divided by 24,901 miles equals 3.086 degrees. This is the expected ball earth pitch change when traveling 213.47 miles over Lake Erie. The test starts at Nickel Plate Beach in Huron, Ohio. This is the first test of the experiment. The board has been leveled up with the 4 bolts at the corner of the board, and I'm using the Bubble Level Pro Android app. This is the screen of the Mini IMU PC app. We are concerned with the angle X and angle Y, pitch and roll, those 2 numbers in degrees. Here is the second test, where I again attempted to get a precise level for the board. And here again is the angle X and Y output measured and calculated by the unit. And here is some pictures from I-90 east of Erie, Pennsylvania, on the way to Buffalo, New York, filmed by another traveler. You can see the horizon formed by Lake Erie rise to eye level. As I traveled to Buffalo, New York, I was reminded that it was the hometown of the great flat earth pioneer, Alex Gleason, who gave us the Gleason azimuthal equidistant map, which has been such a godsend and a wonderful tool to introduce the flat earth concept to a multitude of people. He also is the author of the flat earth classic, Is the Bible from Heaven? Is the Earth a Globe? Alex Gleason, 1893. Within the book, engineer Alex Gleason documents his own flat earth experiments conducted in the Buffalo, New York area. Here's the first test in Buffalo. Again, note the X and Y angle outputs. Here's the second test in Buffalo. X and Y outputs. And here's the third test in Buffalo. X and Y angle outputs. And by the way, those are not clouds in the sky. The sky was pelted with chemtrails all day. Made a very gloomy appearance, and I do apologize for that. The bridge we are looking at connects the U.S. to Canada. Late in the day, we're back here in Ohio, conducting another test at Nickel Plate Beach. Note the X and Y angle output. And here's the summary of the test. This is the expected ball-earth pitch change when traveling 213.47 miles over Lake Erie. I should note that the unit stayed on during the entire test. There was no power cycle of the unit or of the PC or restart or recalibration of any device. The Android app used to balance the board was not recalibrated. It used factory settings throughout the test. My name is Rick Zimmerman. My channel is Seventh Day Truth Seeker. Thank you for watching.
I'm sorry, curveballer. I'm really disappointed. Part 14, I believe it was, maybe 15, that got pulled. It was 3 hours. And when I was watching it, it was a lot of rehashing. They pulled it for one of them smart-ass movie clips I put in there. I believe it was Interstellar. They told them all the textbooks were a lie. I've said this before, one of the most important things I ever learned was know your history or you're doomed to repeat it. A better way of saying that would be to research the true history or true definition of things. That way when people tell you certain things, you'll know that what they're talking about is from their perspective. I had a really good TED Talk in the last part that was pulled, and it was knowledgeable for its use of the astrolabe. And what I thought was very interesting was these things are an antiquated device from thousands of years ago. I believe the first one's 1000 BC, I think, if I don't forget. But I think that's the first time it was used. But what you got to know is it's for navigation. You could use those stars and that astrolabe to project where the star was. If you see the cursor here, where it was on the sky dome in relation to your position, and then you would get another one and you'd have triangulation and you would know where you were on the flat plane of the earth. And either I need to make one or find one, buy one, something, and use it because it shouldn't be accurate. I'm going to show you a couple of videos and piece them together. See this flat earth teacher? If you use all the math, there's no way you should have a northern star over top of the dome. But that's why you hear the new science people saying it's really not a ball, it's a oblate spheroid, trying to say it's a flat ball. You know, they have to do that because in this video you'll see if you go from the center, say the center line would be the North Pole under the ground on the plane, come out about here be the equator, down here be the Tropic of Cancer. There's no way you should be able to see, if it's a ball, from down here south of the Tropic of Capricorn or Cancer, whichever one it is, no way you should see the North Star. But you can. So that's why they're trying to say it's an oblate spheroid, because they can't explain some of these things that are coming out. Now, I want to mention that because a lot of curveballers, I've pointed blatant things out that you can see and test with your own eyes. And they say, nah, it looks right to me, even after they've looked at it. One of them would be the moon. I've sent one curveballer a dozen different pictures of the sun in the sky with the moon, and a different phase than what should be possible if you consider the model. There's daylight side of the earth. So only those phases which are permissible on the daylight side of the earth is what you should see when the sun and the moon are in the sky. That's obvious to anyone. But cognitive dissonance kicks into where people can't even see that. Oh, you mean it's a half a moon? Oh, it's a 3/4 full moon? Oh, it's a full moon and the sun in the sky? The model clearly states the third quarter phase or the first quarter phase or a new moon or any phase derivation between all of those is all you could see. Okay, never a 3/4, never a full. You see what I'm saying? Never more than a half, ever. It's impossible. But yet they want to pretend that's possible. So I'm making this again so the astrolabe point is not lost, and I'll try to make it a little bit more concise and reiterate other points, like knowing your history. You've got to know the history of a word. Now we're I guess through the looking glass we have the flat screen TVs as you saw in 1984. So we have what do they call it? Double speak, double think, where they reverse the meaning of words and change them. I had in the TED Talk, that video that got pulled, I had a segment in there that dealt with it, and the TED Talk guy was talking about stereographic projection. And because his perspective is that this is not a flat, square plane, but this is a round ball, which we all live on, then he thought stereographic projection was the art of making something relative to a ball on a plane. So a three-dimensional ball made flat on the REIT, and that's how he's explaining the astrolabe. When in reality, stereographic projection is a particular mapping function that projects a sphere onto a plane. Okay? Not what they're telling you. Let's see, I've got another picture somewhere. Let me see what I got. Right here. So if there's a circle, but that's the circle of the sky. See the dome? Imagine this half circle on this paper, this flat plane, the plane of the Earth, where we are. And the astrolabe works by them calculating from the North Star to this other star that they see versus their position. It'll tell them where their position is, triangulation. That's how they moved around. That's how all sailors knew where they were at sea before they had good clocks. So you can get the wrong definition for terms if you're not careful. And just so I spoke to a curveballer about the AutoCAD function, that would be orthographic projection. Okay, so that you could see it on a 2D surface like your flat screen here. You could draw three-dimensional objects in the flat, two-dimensional. So I can draw planets on a two-dimensional surface in 3D and slew it, and that's how I knew that their math didn't work, because the moon doesn't cover the sun at the distances they give you. From your perspective on the Earth, you would never see a total eclipse. The sun is too big or too close, whichever you want. So that's impossible. So I keep showing you this over and over so that hopefully, like Bush said, the truth will sink in. See how stereographic projection works? And you'll see that in these videos that I'm going to show you here. You see different perspectives from different things. It'll make it clear to you. That this is impossible. And then I think I'll rest my case, curveball, because there's none of this you can debunk. You can't debunk an astrolabe. You can't debunk a sundial. And if you're really serious, go back and look at your animations of your phases of the moon where they try to explain it to you, and realize on that lit side of the Earth, the only phases according to their diagram that you should see. And then you'll realize you've been lied to.
NASA and modern astronomy say the Earth is a giant globe spinning 1,000 miles per hour around its central axis, traveling 67,000 mile per hour circles around the Sun, spiraling 500,000 miles per hour around the Milky Way, while the entire galaxy rockets a ridiculous 670 million miles per hour through the universe, with all of these motions originating from an alleged Big Bang cosmogenic explosion 14 billion years ago. That's a grand total of 670,568,000 miles per hour in several different directions we're all supposedly speeding along at simultaneously. No one has ever seen, felt, heard, measured, or proven such motion, Yet the vast majority of people unquestioningly accept that the clearly motionless Earth beneath their feet is actually moving over 600 million miles per hour. NASA and modern astronomy say Polaris, the North Pole star, is somewhere between 323 and 434 light years, or about 2 quadrillion miles away from us. Firstly, note that is between 1.9 quadrillion to 2.6 quadrillion miles, making a difference of over 600 trillion miles. If modern astronomy cannot even agree on the distance to stars within hundreds of trillions of miles, perhaps their science is flawed and their theory needs re-examining. However, even granting them their obscurely distant stars, heliocentric astronomers cannot adequately explain how Polaris manages to always remain perfectly aligned straight above the North Pole. If the globe Earth was really spinning west to east 1,000 miles per hour, orbiting the sun counterclockwise at 67,000 miles per hour, spiraling around the outer arms of the Milky Way at 500,000 miles per hour, while shooting through the universe at 670 million miles per hour, how is it even conceptually possible that Polaris, 2 quadrillion miles away, day after day, year after year, always maintains its alignment straight above the North Pole? That would mean from 2 quadrillion miles away, Polaris would have to be perfectly mirroring Earth's several simultaneous wobbling, spinning, spiraling, and shooting motions. Polaris would have to be shooting the same direction through the universe at exactly 670 million miles per hour. It would have to be following the same 500,000 mile per hour, 225 million year spiral around the Milky Way, and mirroring the same 67,000 mile per hour, 365-day orbit around our sun. Or, the Earth is stationary, as common sense and everyday experience testifies. William Carpenter wrote, "It is supposed in the regular course of the Newtonian theory that the Earth is in June about 190 million miles away from its position in December. Now since we can in middle north latitudes see the North Star on looking out of a window that faces it, and out of the very same corner of the very same pane of glass in the very same window all the year round, it is proof enough for any man in his senses that we have made no motion at all." Not only this, but viewed from a ball Earth, Polaris, situated almost straight over the North Pole, should not be visible anywhere in the southern hemisphere. For Polaris to be seen from the southern hemisphere of a globular Earth, the observer would have to be somehow looking through the globe, and miles of land and sea would have to be transparent. Polaris can be seen, however, up to approximately 23.5 degrees south latitude. Dr. Robotham wrote, "If the Earth is a sphere and the pole star hangs over the northern axis, it would be impossible to see it for a single degree beyond the equator, or 90 degrees from the pole. The line of sight would become a tangent to the sphere, and consequently several thousand miles of and divergent from the direction of the pole star. Many cases, however, are on record of the North Polar Star being visible far beyond the equator, as far even as the Tropic of Capricorn." William Carpenter wrote, "The astronomer's theory of a globular Earth necessitates the conclusion that if we travel south of the equator, to see the North Star is an impossibility. Yet it is well known that this star has been seen by navigators when they have been more than 20 degrees south of the equator. This fact, like hundreds of other facts, puts the theory to shame and gives us a proof that the Earth is not a globe." To account for this glaring problem in their model, desperate heliocentrists since the late 19th century have claimed the ball Earth actually tilts a convenient 23.5 degrees back on its vertical axis. Even this brilliant revision to their theory cannot account for the visibility of many other constellations, though. For instance, Ursa Major, very close to Polaris, can be seen from 90 degrees north latitude, the North Pole, all the way down to 30 degrees south latitude. The constellation Vulpecula can be seen from 90 degrees north latitude all the way to 55 degrees south latitude. Taurus, Pisces, and Leo can be seen from 90 degrees north all the way to 65 degrees south. Aquarius and Libra can be seen from 65 degrees north to 90 degrees south. The constellation Virgo is visible from 80 degrees north down to 80 degrees south. and Orion can be seen from 85 degrees north all the way to 75 degrees south latitude. An observer on a ball Earth, regardless of any tilt or inclination, would not logically be able to see this far. Dr. Samuel Rowbotham wrote, "Another thing is certain, that from within the equator the North Pole star and the constellations Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, and many others can be seen from every meridian simultaneously, whereas in the south, from the equator, neither the so-called South Pole star nor the remarkable constellation of the Southern Cross can be seen simultaneously from every meridian, showing that all the constellations of the south, supposed pole star included, sweep over a great southern arc and across the meridian from their rise in the evening to their setting in the morning. But if the Earth is a globe, Sigma Octantis, the South Pole star, and the Southern Cross, a southern circumpolar constellation, they would all be visible at the same time from every longitude on the same latitude, as is the case with the Northern Pole star and the northern circumpolar constellations. Such, however, is not the case. Some heliocentrists have even tried to suggest that the pole star's gradual declination overhead as an observer travels southwards is proof of a globular Earth. Far from it, the declination of the pole star or any other object is simply a result of the law of perspective. The law of perspective dictates that the angle and height at which an object is seen diminishes the farther one recedes from the object, until at a certain point the line of sight and the seemingly uprising surface of the Earth converges to a vanishing point, i.e. the horizon line, beyond which the object is invisible. Thomas Winship wrote, "If we select a flat street a mile long containing a row of lamps, it will be noticed that from where we stand the lamps gradually decline to the ground, the last one being apparently quite on the ground. Take the lamp at the end of the street and walk away from it 100 yards, and it will appear to be much nearer to the ground than it was when we were close to it. Keep on walking away from it, and it will appear to be gradually depressed until it is last seen on the ground and then disappears. Now, according to the astronomers, the whole mile was only depressed about 8 inches from one end to the other, so that this 8 inches could not account for the enormous depression of the light as we recede from it. This proves that the depression of the pole star can and does take place in relation to a flat surface simply because we increase our distance from it, the same as from the street lamp. In other words, the farther away we get from any object above us, as a star for example, the more it is depressed, and if we go far enough it will sink or appear to sink to the horizon and then disappear. The writer has tried the street lamp many times with the same result." And Dr. Rowbotham wrote, "It has often been urged that the Earth must be a globe because the stars in the southern hemisphere move round a south polar star in the same way that those of the north revolve around the northern pole star. This is another instance of the sacrifice of truth and denial of the evidence of our senses for the purpose of supporting a theory which is in every sense false and unnatural. It is known to every observer that the North Pole star is the center of a number of constellations which move over the Earth in a circular direction. Those nearest to it, as the Great Bear, etc., are always visible in England during their whole 24 hours revolution. Those farther away southwards rise north-northeast and set south-southwest. Still further south they rise east by north and set west by north. The farthest south visible from England, the rising is more to the east and southeast, and the setting to the west and southwest. But all the stars visible from London rise and set in a way which is not compatible with the doctrine of rotundity. For instance, if we stand with our backs to the north, on the high land known as Arthur's Seat near Edinburgh, and note the stars in the zenith of our position, and watch for several hours, the zenith stars will gradually recede to the northwest. If we do the same on Woodhouse Moor, near Leeds, or on any of the mountain tops in Yorkshire or Derbyshire, the same phenomenon is observed. The same thing may be seen from the top of Primrose Hill near Regent's Park, London, from Hampstead Heath or Shooter's Hill near Woolwich. If we remain all night, we shall observe the same stars rising toward our position from the northeast, showing that the path of all the stars between ourselves and the northern center move round the North Pole star as a common center of rotation, just as they must do over a plane such as the Earth is proved to be. It is undeniable that upon a globe zenith stars would rise, pass overhead, and set in the plane of the observer's position. If now we carefully watch in the same way the zenith stars from the Rock of Gibraltar, the very same phenomenon is observed. The same is also the case from the Cape of Good Hope, Sydney, and Melbourne in Australia, in New Zealand, in Rio de Janeiro, Montevideo, Valparaiso, and other places in the south. If then the zenith stars of all the places on the earth where special observations have been made rise from the morning horizon to the zenith of an observer and descend to the evening horizon, not in a plane of the position of such observer, but in an arc of a circle concentric with the northern center, the earth is thereby proved to be a plane, and rotundity altogether disproved, shown indeed to be impossible.